Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook with Allison Thompson of the Money Farm, and livestock futures higher today. We did see grains all lower. And Allison, how much of the pressure in grains was just kind of tied to some of these bearish outside markets?
Yeah, obviously with it being a holiday to start the week, it's definitely hard to find some new news with the USDA being closed. So we're not really getting any fresh information there. So we do turn to outside markets for a lot of influence. And unfortunately, it wasn't very positive to start the week. Crude was sharply lower, the dollar was sharply higher. So those are two things that definitely weigh on the market, and that's what we saw in today's session. Just trying to feed off some direction. And obviously, to finish last week, we had a really good rally following the initial USDA report, but even after that, we sold off. So not being able to maintain those highs is definitely concerning, and maybe from just a technical picture of pushing up against some of those resistance and some new highs last week, we did see some of that pressure here to start the week as well.
Yeah, so why do you think we keep failing up at those levels? Is it all technical, or do we just get farmers selling up at those levels?
It's probably a little bit of both. Obviously, they are technical levels. We're hitting some resistance and some moving averages last week, and obviously the inability to cross those with really good follow through is obviously difficult to do. But this week, it's not over with. It's only the beginning of the week, and seeing pullbacks off of some of those big moves higher, it is healthy for the market. But now we got to push through it, and the longer we wait to do that, the worse the outlook looks. But obviously, we just need some fresh demand to do it. And to your point with seeing some farmers selling, I think there definitely is. I know some guys around here, I've taken plenty of phone calls over the last couple of weeks. They're running out of commercial storage time. They're going to be coming up against storage costs. So it's making those decisions here, of course, before year end as well, and what to do with them. So there probably is some sales. If guys are putting orders in above the market, or you saw that we made some new highs here just last week. Not a bad time to reward the market either and make some of those decisions.
And the wheat market hit some new lows. Do you think that's been about weather, or do you think we're just seeing technical selling again?
Well, it's probably a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I mean, we have definitely been trading the weather as the crop goes into dormancy in the northern hemisphere, and conditions have definitely improved. And I think that is definitely weighing on wheat exchanges. But we're also continuing to look at the global scale too. I mean, not only in terms of weather and conditions there, but also pricing. A lot of our initial round that we got was based on some speculation that China was going to be slowing their exports, that they were going to actually increase their prices, both of which haven't really seen much follow through. So until we really see something change there or see a big spark it for U.S. demand, ultimately China is kind of the trend center of the global wheat market. And if they're not changing trend, why should the wheat market change trend? And I think that's the biggest thing that we're up against, because when they do lower the pricing of their wheat exports, we obviously become less competitive. So we do need them to increase their wheat or start talking about supply issues and export quotas and things like this. And we have yet to see any of that really get some follow through news. And so without that, I think the path of least resistance is down. But I do believe there are plenty of production issues and supply concerns out there in the world of wheat that we aren't going to be seeing new lows. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting close to testing them. And the technical action is supportive of that. We've gotten some big steep down moves here just to start the week, but we actually closed at least 10, if not better than that, off the lows for today. So it does kind of show that we are seeing some of that selling start to dry off. Now, of course, it's only one session. We'd like to see more of that to confirm that we're maybe seeing some bottoming action, but it is something to keep an eye on. Not a bad way necessarily to start the week.
Yeah. So you talk about demand for wheat. Let's talk about demand, because that's a big focus now for corn and soybeans. Now that we're past the WASD and that sort of thing, do you see more demand coming at the market here, especially until we get to January 20th, when we get a new president in, and maybe we get some Trump tariffs, or what will that play out like?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. If I knew the answer, that'd be great. But I think we're all speculating on that. And I think last week's USDA report just is doing the exact same thing. We saw them adjust production numbers and supply side here for the US, but they didn't really change anything on the demand side, specifically for corn, because we know we've had really good demand so far, where soybeans have kind of been lackluster. So they did adjust that. But to not see them really make a big move in either direction direction on, any of the grains for that matter. Even wheat didn't have a big significant change. I think that those are things that the market is just being cautious on. The USD is being cautious on because we don't know how it's going to play out. And the marketing year is in its infancy here for export sales. So yes, we are running higher than we were last year. Yes, we're meeting the USD's pace for their export expectations, but ultimately it leaves a lot of time where we could see a lull in exports. And given how the USD report went last week, they're thinking that it peaked. And it could be. I mean, we're getting into the peak season for soybeans. We're starting to get into the season here for corn. So maybe some of it is front running. Honestly, no one knows at this point. That's the hard part. No one really knows where demand's going to go from here. There's a lot of unknowns and unknown questions. So it just reiterates we have to be taking advantage of these moves when they come. Make sure you remain hedged because obviously it's a big unknown, but also take advantages to make sales and stuff when we do get these types of moves when they're demand related.
Especially, we need to take advantage of these bumps up because South America is getting their crop planted now, aren't they? So that's
Yes.
going to be a big factor going forward.
Yes, absolutely. We've seen them progress phenomenally well. They've kind of made the comeback story this year, given how dry that they have started. They're actually back above normal pace or typical average pace for soybeans. They're lacking a little bit compared to last year on the corn side, but overall, they've had great conditions to get that crop in, and it's off to a great start. Now, does that mean we're out of the woods for weather scares in South America? No. They obviously have to get through their growing season too, and we know that moisture was a huge deficit to going into their planting season. So yeah, the rains that they have received now have definitely alleviated that, but there's still not a lot of ample moisture to go on. Last year, during this time, we were talking about a resurgence of drought because it got so hot and their evaporation rates increased. And I don't think they're out of the woods from seeing something from that happen this year either. Obviously, the situation looks like it's not going to go there quite yet, but I don't think they're out of the woods as far as seeing a resurgence of a weather market in South America.
Let's also talk a little bit about the fund community. As of this last Commitment of Traders report, anyways, we still see funds short in soybeans and wheat, but yet they're long in corn. When's the last time that happened?
Yeah, it was an interesting flip. This is the first time that we've seen the funds actually flip to a net long position on corn in 15 months. So it's obviously a big thing. And it's also an interesting time period. We saw them flip to a long position as of last Tuesday, and last Tuesday was election day. So they bought into that, which was good. They actually had a higher close for the week last week. So I think there's some speculation here that they've likely continued to add to those positions. So how they're going to, go for the next couple of days here remains to be unknown, but I do think they are staying long in the corn market. Now they need to get something to really continue to feed that. If whether we're changing a change in trend here for the funds, I'm not buying it yet. I'd like to see a maintenance and obviously growing of position to say that we're looking at for a change in trend in corn. And obviously with soybeans and wheat still being on the short side, if not adding to the short side on some of those contracts, it does make me a little bit cautious on seeing all the grains turning into a flip in trend. So it's just another thing that we're watching. And obviously going into the end of the year, it'll be interesting to see how they position themselves, especially among all this market volatility.
Let's wrap up on cattle. We did make some new lows for the move and then managed to close a little bit higher. Did we just find support, and is it just a one-day deal?
Yeah, well, they definitely did come back, and it actually, chart-wise, it kind of looks like the wheat markets in a way. We're seeing selling to the downside pretty sharp, but then we end up coming back from it during the day. So it could be some bottoming action here too, but we are kind of getting to some support levels. So the market's going to have to decide which way it needs to go. Some of that may be coming from some outside market movement as well. We're obviously keeping an eye on fundamentals, but overall, it seems like we're just trading in a wide sideways range. And honestly, we could see grains do that kind of trading pattern as well here going forward until they get some new news and a firm decision on direction one way or another.
Good point. All right. Thanks for joining us, Allison Thompson with the Money Farm. That is Markets Now.